Amid the battlefields of antiquity, where the fate of nations was decided by the edge of a sword, emerged a figure who would become synonymous with power and military genius. Julius Caesar, a name that echoes through history as the great strategist who not only conquered lands but also redefined what it meant to lead in combat. His military campaigns were not mere displays of force. They were lessons in bravery, precise calculation, and tactical innovation that revolutionized the way Rome waged its wars. Caesar faced powerful enemies, overcame seemingly insurmountable obstacles, and through his swift and strategic decisions, built a reputation for invincibility. But what exactly made his campaigns so extraordinary? What were the tactics that secured him impossible victories and cemented his place as one of the greatest military leaders of all time? In this video, we'll explore the campaigns that defined Caesar, delving into the strategies he employed to transform Roman warfare, and analyze how his bravery on the battlefield not only conquered territories, but also won the heart and loyalty of his troops. Get ready to discover how Julius Caesar, through his strategic mind and unwavering courage, left a legacy that would continue to inspire leaders and commanders for centuries. The rise of a commander, Julius Caesar's ascent to military power. Julius Caesar was born in the year 100 before Christ, at a time when Rome was deeply embroiled in internal conflicts and intense political changes. From an early age, he stood out as someone with exceptional skills and great ambition. Although born into the patrician Julia family, his position was not among the most influential in Rome, which meant Caesar had to carve his own path to power. His interest in politics and warfare emerged early, and he quickly realized that military success could be his main tool to achieve the glory and power he so desired. This realization was crucial in shaping his approach both in politics and on the battlefield. The first major test of these ambitions came when Caesar got involved in the military campaign in Asia Minor, where his courageous actions drew the attention of his superiors. During a risky mission, Caesar volunteered to rescue a contingent of trapped Roman troops, a feat that earned him great prestige. This was his first demonstration of a willingness to make bold decisions in critical situations, something that would become a hallmark of his career. However, his growing military success soon attracted the attention of the powerful in Rome, and the young commander realized he would need to navigate the treacherous waters of Roman politics carefully. Upon returning to Rome, Caesar used his growing reputation to position himself on the political stage. He formed strategic alliances, such as the first triumvirate with Pompey and Crassus, a political maneuver that secured him support and resources. During his term as governor of Hispania, he again demonstrated his military skill by suppressing local revolts and expanding Roman influence in the region. These victories were crucial in solidifying his reputation as an effective and visionary military leader, and they paved the way for his future campaigns of conquest. Caesar, however, always viewed war as an extension of politics, and he understood that to secure his power in Rome, he needed to achieve extraordinary feats on the battlefield. His next major opportunity came when he took command of the legions in Gaul. This period was crucial for Caesar, as it not only allowed him to showcase his military prowess, but also provided him with the chance to accumulate significant wealth, which would be essential for financing his political ambitions in Rome. During the Gallic Wars, Caesar faced fierce Celtic tribes that constantly challenged Roman dominance. However, he used a combination of innovative tactics and calculated brutality to subdue his enemies, while sending detailed reports of his victories back to Rome, ensuring that his deeds were widely known and admired by the people. This rise was marked by a series of battles and political maneuvers that demonstrated his ability to combine military strength with diplomatic cunning. Caesar understood that to secure his place in history, he needed to succeed both on the battlefield and in the Roman political arena. His victories in Gaul not only significantly expanded the territory under Roman control, but also solidified his image as an indomitable leader whose skills extended far beyond mere military command. This image would be crucial for the next chapter of his career, where he would face even greater challenges, both within and beyond Rome. The Siege of Alesia, the tactic of trapping the enemy. The Siege of Alesia, in 52 before Christ, is one of the most iconic examples of Julius Caesar's military genius and a crucial point in his career. Facing Vercingetorix, the leader of the united Gallic tribes, Caesar was in a difficult situation. Alesia, a fortress situated on top of a hill and surrounded by determined defenders, seemed impregnable. The Gauls had an advantageous position and were more numerous, which led many Roman commanders to believe that victory would be impossible. However, Caesar, with his characteristic boldness, decided not to attack the fortress directly, but to completely isolate it, betting on a double siege to trap the enemy. Caesar's strategy involved constructing two lines of fortifications, one facing inward to keep the defenders of Alesia trapped, and another facing outward to prevent Gallic reinforcements from breaking the siege. This tactic was a risky move, as it placed the Roman forces between two potentially hostile armies, with limited supplies and the need to maintain morale under extreme conditions. However, Caesar was confident in his strategy and his ability to control his troops. He knew that time was on his side. The longer the siege lasted, the more the defenders of Alesia would suffer from hunger and a lack of supplies. As the siege dragged on, the situation inside Alesia became desperate. The defenders, without food and with few resources, began to lose hope. Outside, the Gallic reinforcements launched fierce attacks against the Roman fortifications, but were repeatedly repelled by the discipline and superior engineering of Caesar's legions. The battle reached its climax when Vercingetorix launched a final assault, hoping to break the siege, but was again thwarted by Roman tenacity. The Gauls, realizing there was no escape, began to surrender in large numbers. Caesar, seizing the opportunity, ordered a devastating attack that completely shattered Gallic resistance. Vercingetorix, acknowledging defeat, surrendered to Caesar, bringing a symbolic end to the Gallic revolt. The victory at Alesia was more than just a territorial conquest. It was a demonstration of how tactical ingenuity and relentless determination could overcome even the most formidable challenges. From that moment on, Caesar was not only a successful commander, but the conqueror who had subdued all of Gaul, thereby securing Rome's safety and solidifying his position as the supreme military leader of the Republic. The consequences of this victory were profound. Success at Alesia not only secured Caesar the unwavering loyalty of his legions, but also transformed him into a feared and respected figure in Rome. With Gaul under control, Caesar amassed enormous wealth and prestige, setting the stage for future conflicts with his political rivals in Rome. The tactic of trapping the enemy, used so successfully at Alesia, would become a hallmark of his campaigns, illustrating his strategic genius and his ability to turn even the most desperate situations into decisive victories. Crossing the Rubicon, courage or calculated risk. The crossing of the Rubicon in 49 before Christ is one of the most emblematic moments in the history of Julius Caesar and of Rome itself, marking the beginning of the civil war that would transform the Roman Republic into an empire. The Rubicon was a small river in northern Italy, but its importance was monumental. By crossing it with his legions, Caesar was directly challenging the Senate and the authority of Pompey, who had been his ally in the first triumvirate but had now become his rival. The famous phrase "Alia iacta est," the die is cast, attributed to Caesar at the moment he crossed the Rubicon, captures the magnitude of his decision, a defiant act with no turning back. The crossing was not an impulsive act. On the contrary, it was the result of a series of political and strategic calculations. Caesar knew he was in a delicate position. His growing popularity and military power, acquired during the Gallic Wars, had caused fear and distrust in the Senate, which had attempted to disarm him and force him to return to Rome as a private citizen. Caesar, however, was aware that returning without his legions would mean the end of his career and possibly his life. Therefore, by crossing the Rubicon, he was making a calculated gamble, relying on the loyalty of his soldiers and popular support to confront Pompey and his followers. As he advanced south with his legions, Caesar encountered little resistance. Many of the local governors and soldiers had served under his command in Gaul and viewed him as a just and competent leader. His march on Rome was so swift and efficient that Pompey, surprised, had to flee east, leaving the city in Caesar's hands. This maneuver was not only militarily brilliant, but also a demonstration of Caesar's power to manipulate public perception. He presented himself not as a usurper, but as a defender of the Roman people against the corruption of the Senate and the tyranny of Pompey. The decision to cross the Rubicon was undoubtedly an act of courage, but also of cold calculation. Caesar fully understood the implications of his choice and was willing to face all consequences to achieve his ultimate goal: absolute control of Rome. During his march, he adopted a merciful stance, offering forgiveness to enemies who surrendered and trying to minimize destruction, which earned him even more support among ordinary Romans. This strategic behavior showed that, beyond being a great military commander, Caesar was also a shrewd politician, capable of balancing force and diplomacy to consolidate his power. This bold crossing not only defined Caesar's destiny, but also changed the course of Roman history forever. By moving decisively to challenge established norms, he made it clear that military power could and would override the authority of the Senate. From that moment on, the Roman Republic was doomed, and the path to empire was irrevocably charted. The Rubicon became a symbol of Caesar's courage and determination, but also of his unparalleled ability to turn risks into opportunities, shaping the future of Rome according to his vision. The Gallic Wars: How Caesar Conquered Gaul. The Gallic Wars, fought between 58 and 50 before Christ, were the stage where Julius Caesar demonstrated the full extent of his military and strategic prowess. During these years of conflict, Caesar faced a series of Celtic tribes inhabiting Gaul, a vast region covering most of modern Western Europe. The campaign began as a mission to defend Rome's interests against external threats, but quickly evolved into a series of conquests that significantly expanded the territory under Roman control. Under Caesar's leadership, the Roman army defeated several powerful tribes and unified Gaul under Roman rule, a feat that seemed impossible before his arrival. From the outset, Caesar approached the campaign with meticulous planning. He knew that to conquer Gaul, he needed not only to win battles but also to break the resistance of the fiercely independent Celtic tribes, who were frequently allied with each other. Caesar employed a combination of diplomacy and military force to isolate his enemies, forming alliances with some tribes while attacking others. This approach allowed him to weaken the cohesion of the Celtic forces, making them more vulnerable to Roman attacks. Additionally, Caesar demonstrated an exceptional ability to adapt his tactics to the terrain and the actions of his enemies, enabling him to overcome seemingly insurmountable challenges. One of the most crucial moments of the Gallic Wars was the Battle of Bibracte in 58 before Christ, where Caesar faced the Helvetii, a migratory tribe threatening to invade Roman territory. The battle was long and fierce, but Caesar managed to win due to the discipline of his legions and his ability to command under pressure. This victory not only halted the Helvetii migration, but also sent a clear message to other Gallic tribes. Rome was willing and capable of defending its interests in the region. From there, Caesar continued his campaign with a series of decisive victories that allowed him to control large parts of Gaul. Another critical moment was the Siege of Gergovia in 52 before Christ, where Caesar faced one of the few significant defeats of his career. Despite his best tactics, the mountainous terrain and strong Gallic defense led by Vercingetorix, the same commander he would face at Alesia, forced Caesar to retreat. However, this defeat only strengthened his resolve. He quickly reorganized his forces and prepared a counterattack that culminated in the Siege of Alesia, where he would finally crush the Gallic resistance and solidify his control over Gaul. Caesar's ability to learn from his defeats and turn them into future victories was one of the keys to his success in the Gallic Wars. The Gallic Wars ended with the complete subjugation of Gaul, and Caesar returned to Rome as one of the wealthiest and most powerful men of the Republic. His ability to conduct complex military campaigns, his tactical innovation, and his capacity to motivate and lead his troops ensured that he not only conquered territories, but also built a lasting legacy. Gaul, once a region of independent tribes, was transformed into a prosperous Roman province, and Caesar was celebrated as the great conqueror. However, these victories also marked the beginning of his final confrontation with Pompey and the Senate, who feared Caesar's growing power and seemingly limitless ambition. The Battle of Pharsalus, strategy versus numbers. The Battle of Pharsalus, fought in 48 before Christ, is one of the most studied battles in Roman history, not only for its importance, but for how Julius Caesar overcame adversities with brilliant strategy. Facing Pompey, who was seen as the defender of the Roman Republic and had a significantly larger army, Caesar was in a disadvantageous position. Pompey had the support of the Senate and a combined force that included the best legions of Rome, while Caesar, despite having loyal veteran troops, was outnumbered and faced a scarcity of supplies. The numerical difference was so great that many believed Pompey's victory was inevitable. However, Caesar, a master at exploiting his enemies' weaknesses, knew that Pompey, despite his strength, was under pressure to secure a quick victory. This led him to adopt a cautious strategy, keeping his forces intact while using tactical maneuvers to wear down Pompey's troops. Caesar positioned his army in a way that forced Pompey to fight on terrain that favored Caesar's veteran legions, which were more disciplined and better suited for prolonged combat. He also used an innovative formation, placing his more experienced troops on the flanks and keeping a hidden reserve for a decisive counterattack. On the day of the battle, Pompey followed a more conservative strategy, ordering his troops to wait for Caesar's attack in a defensive position. He hoped that natural attrition and hunger would weaken Caesar's army before a direct confrontation. However, Caesar, noticing Pompey's hesitation, ordered a cautious advance. When Pompey's troops finally attacked, Caesar executed his decisive maneuver. He brought his hidden reserves to strike the exposed flank of Pompey's forces, catching them by surprise. This unexpected move disorganized Pompey's ranks, and what started as a balanced battle quickly turned into a catastrophic defeat for him. Caesar's victory at Pharsalus was a triumph of strategy over brute force. Although outnumbered, he demonstrated that control of the terrain and the ability to anticipate the enemy's moves could turn the game in his favor. Pompey, shaken by the defeat, fled to Egypt, where he was assassinated, leaving Caesar as the uncontested master of Rome. Pharsalus was not only a military victory, but also a decisive blow in the Civil War, which effectively destroyed organized resistance against Caesar and paved the way for his rise to absolute power. The battle also highlighted the unwavering loyalty that Caesar's troops had for him. They faced adverse conditions and a numerically superior enemy, but fully trusted their commander's decisions. This relationship was the result of years of campaigning together, where Caesar not only led but fought alongside his men, sharing their hardships and triumphs. Pharsalus, therefore, was the culmination of a relationship built on mutual respect and military competence, elements that would be fundamental to Caesar's transformation from general to lifetime dictator of Rome. The Siege of Alexandria, strategy and diplomacy at play. After the victory at Pharsalus, Julius Caesar followed Pompey to Egypt, where he became involved in one of the most complex episodes of his career, the Siege of Alexandria. In 48 before Christ, Caesar arrived in Egypt amidst a local political crisis, with the young pharaoh Ptolemy XIII in conflict with his sister, Cleopatra VII, over the control of the throne. Pompey, seeking refuge in Egypt, had been assassinated by Ptolemy in an attempt to gain Caesar's favor. However, this action was met with contempt by Caesar, who now faced a new dilemma. Should he consolidate his victory and return to Rome, or intervene in Egyptian politics for strategic gains? Caesar chose to become involved in Egyptian politics, seeing an opportunity to expand Roman influence. He quickly sided with Cleopatra, recognizing her as a powerful ally. However, this decision provoked the anger of Ptolemy and his supporters, who rebelled against the Roman presence. The Siege of Alexandria was then imposed on Caesar and his troops, who found themselves outnumbered and in a hostile territory, isolated from the rest of Rome. For months, Caesar had to fight to maintain his positions within the city while trying to secure local support and waiting for reinforcements that were on their way. The situation in Alexandria was complicated both by geography and politics. The city, one of the richest and most influential in the Mediterranean, was heavily defended, and Cleopatra's support was not enough to ensure an easy victory. Caesar, however, used his skill in military engineering to turn the city's defenses into strategic points for his own ends. He ordered the construction of temporary fortifications, used the Roman navy to cut off Ptolemy's supplies, and carried out a series of maneuvers that kept the Egyptians in a constant state of alert and attrition. Meanwhile, on the diplomatic front, Caesar was equally active. He understood that military victory alone would not be sufficient to ensure long-term stability in Egypt, so he worked to legitimize Cleopatra's position as queen. This alliance not only secured a power base for Cleopatra, but also reinforced Caesar's influence over the rich and strategic Nile region. Furthermore, his personal relationship with Cleopatra, which resulted in the birth of Caesarion, further complicated Roman and Egyptian politics, but also ensured a support base for Rome's interests in Egypt. Finally, after months of resistance, and with the arrival of Roman reinforcements, Caesar managed to lift the Siege of Alexandria. Ptolemy XIII died during the battle, and Cleopatra was restored to the throne with Rome's support. The siege, although less grand in military terms than some of Caesar's other campaigns, was a triumph of both strategy and diplomacy. It not only secured Egypt's submission, but also strengthened Caesar's political position, making it clear that his authority extended beyond the borders of Rome. The successful conclusion of this conflict allowed Caesar to return to Rome even more powerful, ready to consolidate the power he had gained through battles and political alliances. Innovation on the battlefield, Caesar's tactics and technology. Julius Caesar is often remembered not only for his courage and leadership, but also for his tactical innovations and effective use of military technology in his campaigns. In an era when warfare relied heavily on brute strength and the courage of soldiers, Caesar demonstrated that battlefield superiority could be achieved through ingenuity and adaptation. His campaigns are filled with examples of how he employed new tactics, adapted to the terrain, and utilized available tools in surprising ways to achieve victory. One of the most notable aspects of Caesar's leadership was his ability to understand and exploit the enemy's weaknesses. He did not confine himself to traditional tactics. Instead, he developed tailored strategies for each situation. A clear example of this was his use of military engineering to besiege and subdue seemingly impregnable fortresses. In the Siege of Alesia, for example, Caesar constructed a double line of fortifications, allowing him to lay siege to the city while protecting his troops from enemy reinforcements. This siege tactic, although risky, demonstrated a level of planning and execution rarely seen in earlier wars. Caesar was also a pioneer in the use of cavalry in his campaigns. He understood the importance of mobility and speed on the battlefield, frequently using his cavalry to conduct surprise attacks and decisive flanking maneuvers. Unlike many of his contemporaries, who viewed cavalry merely as support for infantry, Caesar gave it a central role in his battles, allowing him to gain an advantage over larger and less flexible enemy armies. The Battle of Pharsalus, for example, highlighted how he used cavalry to destabilize Pompey's forces, securing victory in an initially unfavorable situation. Moreover, Caesar was innovative in the use of weaponry and military technology. He valued catapults and ballistae, employing them effectively in both siege and open field situations. These weapons allowed him to wear down the enemy from a distance before launching infantry assaults, often weakening enemy morale and cohesion before close combat. Caesar's ability to integrate these war tools into his overall strategy distinguished him from other generals of his time, who often relied solely on brute force and numerical superiority. Finally, Caesar's adaptation to terrain and the use of natural conditions were also part of his innovative approach. He did not view natural elements as obstacles, but as potential allies. Whether it was necessary to build bridges in record time, as he did during his campaign in Germania, or to use the weather to his advantage, Caesar was always ready to modify his tactics according to circumstances. This flexibility was one of his greatest strengths, enabling him to succeed in challenging terrains and situations where other commanders might have failed. Caesar's innovations on the battlefield not only ensured his victories, but also profoundly influenced Roman military tactics in the centuries that followed.